What would you do if your worst enemy was waiting for you at home? Old Man Lin is stronger than ever and wants to take down President Bukele at all costs, even if it's in his own home. Stay until the end of the video and find out. The afternoon was slowly falling over San Salvador, and the city seemed calm. However, for Nayib Bukele, president of El Salvador, that calm was a mirage. For weeks, there had been disturbing rumors about a man who had remained in the shadows. A ghost some called Old Man Lin. Despite security alerts and warnings, Bukele had not changed his routines. After all, he was the most powerful man in the country, and he fully trusted the security surrounding him. That afternoon, Bukele was returning home after an exhausting day. The lights in his house illuminated the shadows in the garden, and everything seemed in order. The security agents carried out their routine check, and, as they always, gave the go-ahead for the president to enter his residence. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. However, what Bukele didn't know was that for weeks, someone had been watching his every move with unnerving precision. Old Man Lin, the infamous leader of the Mara gang, was back. Old Man Lin had disappeared from the radar after escaping from the cecot, the most secure prison in the country. Something that seemed impossible for anyone. But Lin wasn't just anyone. With his years of experience and a cunning that had allowed him to survive in a world full of betrayal and violence, he had managed to plan his escape without leaving a trace. For weeks, he had remained anonymous, moving cautiously, planning every step of his revenge. Now the moment had arrived as Bukele entered his home, enjoying the brief peace his residence offered. He had no idea what awaited him in his home, his own living room. He barely crossed the door and left his coat on a chair. It was then that he saw him. Sitting on his couch in the dim light was Old Man Lin. The president froze in his mind, processing the scene. There was that man he himself had promised to destroy, the man who had sworn that he would never leave prison alive. And yet there he was in his own home, waiting for him. The silence in the living room was suffocating. Old Man Lin, with a cold and calculating smile, broke the silence. I promised you, Bukele. I told you I would come for you, and here I am, keeping my word. His voice was low, almost a whisper, but each word carried an unbearable weight. The president tried to maintain his composure, but fear began to seep into his gaze. Despite his years of facing threats and managing crisis situations, he had never been so exposed, so vulnerable. How did you get in here? He asked. Bukele, his voice trembling. An almost automatic question, not knowing if he really wanted the answer. Old Man Lin slowly got up from the couch, unhurried. I've been watching you for weeks. Nayib, every step you take, every move you make. Your confidence is good, but not enough for me. I'm Old Man Lin. Remember, I've spent my whole life moving in the shadows. This was like a game to me. The president took a step back, but Lin didn't move. His presence in the room filled everything. Bukele understood he was alone, trapped in his own house with the most dangerous man in El Salvador. I swear you won't get out of here, the president said, trying to sound firm, but desperation seeped into his tone. Lin let out a soft laugh. Do you think I'm here, Bukele, in front of you, and you haven't even realized how I got in? This is your defeat. You played with fire, and now I'm here to collect what's mine. Bukele stepped back until their backs collided. Lin leaned forward against a wall, slowly, his gaze fixed on the president. I promised you that one day I would make you pay for what you did to me. You took away my freedom. You humiliated me. You turned me into a prisoner when I was king. But you know what? I'm not here today just for revenge. Kel tried to search for his phone, for some security device, anything that would get him out of this nightmare. But Lin continued talking, interrupting his attempt to act. I came to remind you that you can't control everyone, that you can't destroy everyone who defies you. Old Man Lin stopped in front of Bukele, just a few inches away. The president felt the cold in his chest. I could finish you off right now, Lin said, almost in a whisper. But that would be too easy. I want you to live in fear. I want you to wake up every day wondering when I'll come again. Buck clenched his fists, his body tense. Old Man Lin looked at him for a moment longer, then took a few steps back, leaving the president in shock. This isn't the last time we see each other, Lin said, as he headed toward the door. "I'll keep my promise, Bukele, and when I do, it will be my way." Old Man Lin disappeared into the darkness of the night as quickly as he could have. When Bukele arrived, still trembling, he didn't know how to react. The terror he had felt wasn't just for the man who had been in his house, but for the certainty that even though he was surrounded by security, no one was truly safe from Old Man Lin. In the days that followed, after that disturbing night when Old Man Lin infiltrated his home, Nayib Bukele was never the same again. Although outwardly he maintained the image of a strong, firm, and determined president, inside, something had broken. The feeling of invulnerability that had accompanied him throughout his political career suddenly vanished, leaving in its place a persistent and corrosive fear. Every corner of his house, every shadow that was projected on the walls, every sound that he had previously ignored, now reminded him that his life, his family's life, and his own safety were in danger. The morning after the encounter with Old Man Lin was chaotic. Bukele he met with his security team, visibly upset, demanding explanations. How had it been possible for one of the most dangerous men in El Salvador to break into his own home, overcoming all protective barriers? No one had clear answers. The only reality was that it had happened, and Lin's message had been as clear as a direct threat. "I'm not finished with you." In a matter of hours, Buell ordered the reinforcement of security at his residence. His home, which until Inton had been a haven of calm for him and his family, became a fortress. Additional security cameras were installed in every corner, both inside and outside the house. The doors and windows were reinforced with advanced security systems, and a team of armed soldiers began patrolling the surrounding area 24 hours a day. Instead of living in peace, the Bukele family now lived under constant surveillance. Despite these measures, fear remained. Bukele did not trust that everything would be safe. That wasn't enough to keep Old Man Lin out of his reach. The nights were getting harder. He found himself unable to sleep, always on alert, waiting for the slightest sign of danger. Every creak in the house, every change in the intensity of the outside lights made him jump out of bed. The thought that Ellen might be watching him from some dark corner of the property tormented him incessantly. His paranoia began to affect his behavior in public. His closest associates noticed that he was becoming more irritable, more demanding, and distrustful at every security meeting. He insisted that efforts be redoubled to locate Ellen and eliminate any possible threat. The investigation into Old Man Lin's escape from the cecot intensified, but until then, all the clues seemed to lead to a dead end. Ellen had completely disappeared, as if she had vanished into the shadows. And that only made the situation worse. Bukele's obsession with security extended beyond his home. He ordered that all government buildings be subjected to exhaustive searches for possible vulnerabilities. Any visit or meeting was meticulously planned and surrounded by strict security protocols. The president no longer trusted anyone, even his closest allies. They began to feel the pressure of his paranoia. Every action was questioned. Every decision was scrutinized in detail, and suspicions of treason began to float in the air. Bukele's relationship with his family also began to deteriorate. His wife and children, who had previously viewed their home as a safe place, now lived in a constant state of tension. The soldiers patrolling day and night, the surveillance cameras following their every move, and Bukele's constant concern for their personal safety began to create an unbearable atmosphere. Family moments that used to be peaceful and loving became scenes of silence and anxiety. Bukele avoided talking about what had happened that night, but his family noticed. His gaze was no longer the same. His face was marked by tiredness and fear. Despite everything, Old Man Lin did not reappear. However, Bukele found no solace in that absence. The uncertainty of not knowing when he might reappear kept him in a constant state of alert as the days passed. His mind played with all the possible ways Lin could fulfill his promise. Perhaps it wouldn't be a direct attack. Perhaps he would seek to make him suffer in more subtle ways, attacking those he loved or slowly and deliberately destroying his public image. The emotional and mental wear and tear became evident in his work. Bukele, a leader who had been admired for his determination and energy, began to show signs of exhaustion. His press conferences were shorter. His speeches were less impactful. He was no longer the man who had promised to change El Salvador. Was someone consumed by fear, a president, an entity that had stopped trusting in the strength of its leadership. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, we invite you to give us your like and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of our videos. We continue the truth about Bukele. One afternoon, as the sun slowly set behind the hills of San Salvador, Bukele was sitting in his office, looking out the window, but with his mind elsewhere. Something had happened since that fateful night when old Man Lin had infiltrated his home. Although, outwardly, the president tried to appear strong and focused on his work, his mind kept returning to that disturbing image of Ellen waiting for him in his living room, telling him he had returned to fulfill his promise. The atmosphere in the presidential residence had changed drastically. Security agents patrolled day and night, cameras watched every corner in Bukele. He could barely sleep. He had ordered security reinforcements for his family, especially his daughters, but fear continued to haunt his mind that afternoon. While Bukele meditated in silence, one of his closest guards, a trusted man with whom he had worked for years, entered the room. It was Carlos, a veteran of the security forces and someone who had been by Bukele's side since the beginning of his term. Although Carlos deeply respected the president, he had seen how the situation with old Man Lin had affected him. Fear was evident in every decision he made, and Carlos couldn't help but wonder why Bukele didn't take more aggressive measures to end the threat. Carlos cautiously approached the president and, after a few moments of awkward silence, asked the question that had been on his mind for days. "Mr. President," Carlos began, weighing his words, "if you limit the question, why don't we go for the old Lin? We know he represents a danger. But why not? We simply eliminate him. We have the resources, the power. We can end this once and for all." Bukele didn't respond immediately. He kept his gaze fixed on the window as if carefully considering every word he was going to say. After what seemed like endless minutes, he finally turned his chair toward Carlos, and his eyes revealed a feeling of tiredness, fear, and frustration. "It's not simple, Carlos," Bukele responded in a softer tone than Carlos expected. "If it were only a matter of resources or power, he would have already gone after him. Believe me, I've considered it many times, but old Lin, he's not like the others. He's not someone you can simply eliminate and expect everything to disappear. He has connections, he has people, and above all, he has nothing to do with it." Carlos frowned, trying to understand what his president was telling him. But before he could ask another question, Bukele continued, this time in a more somber tone. "Yes, I make a move against him. He will respond, and he won't just come for me. Carlos will come for my family." Bukele's voice cracked slightly as he mentioned that last word, and Carlos noticed. He already threatened to return, and next time, to wait for him to just come and talk. Bukele got up from his chair and began pacing around the room as if he needed to release the tension building up in his body. "I'm not afraid for myself," Carlos finally said, stopping in front of a framed photo of his family. "I fear for my daughter." He paused as if the words were difficult to pronounce. "I fear that one day, while I'm here in meetings, signing documents, and giving speeches, the best way to hurt me is through her. And if that happens, what could I do to stop him? How could I protect her from a man who has no limits?" The silence in the room was deafening. Carlos looked at his president with a mixture of surprise and understanding. I had never seen Bukele so vulnerable, so exposed. He had always been an imposing leader, someone unafraid of making difficult decisions. For now, at that moment, he seemed more like a concerned father than a president. "I'm sorry, sir," Carlos said, trying to ease the tension. "But even so, we can't let old Man Lin continue to be a threat. We can't live in fear forever." Bukele nodded slowly, but his expression was still worried. "I know that, Carlos, and believe me, every day I think about it. Every day, I wonder if I'm doing the right thing, and by staying in this defensive posture, but until I'm completely sure that my daughter will be safe, I can't risk it." The weight of those words was felt in the air. For Bukele, the safety of his daughter was the only thing that truly mattered. At that moment, he could face any threat, any public challenge, but the idea of losing his daughter, that old man Lin could touch her in any way, terrified him more than anything else. Carlos nodded, respecting his president's decision, even though he didn't completely agree. He knew Bukele was behind, torn between his duty as a leader and his instinct as a father. And although Lin's threat was still real, he also knew that Bukele would do everything in his power to protect his daughter, even if it meant living in constant fear of what might happen. Bukele sat back down at his desk, his gaze fixed on his family photo, as if seeking within it the strength to continue. "I will protect my daughter, Carlo, whatever happens." And so we come to the end of this video. If you liked it, I invite you to give us a like so we can continue making more videos like this. Also, don't forget to subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our new videos. I wish you a great day. Until next time.